We're about to begin, and so I'm inviting everyone to please take your seats as close to the front as possible, as we agreed, before we get into this afternoon's proceedings. It is the return of the Lion, the launch of The Lion of King Street, Samir Younis, a portrait of service by Elaine Commission, OD, JP, MBA. I want to thank Charmaine Limonius, who entertained us earlier. I have to say, congratulations to Michael and Elaine. I never do a book launch without or agree to do a book launch without actually reading the book. And I did. And it's such a powerful statement, not just a portrait, a powerful statement about who we can be as Jamaican people. Our pledge says, so that Jamaica may. And I believe that Samir Younis lived by that pledge. And so we get a glimpse into his personal life, his loves, but we also get a glimpse into what it means to be great. And that's important because I feel that generations to come should be inspired by greatness. They should believe that they are capable of achieving greatness. And he did just that. And not only was he great, but he made sure that as a Jamaican society, he did his part to make us great as well. And that's so important. And so we are here this evening to honor him and to be inspired by his life. We begin, though, with a prayer of thanksgiving, and I want to also welcome not just the people who are in the room, but those who have joined us online as we stream. And so I invite the Reverend Astor Carlisle to do our prayer of thanksgiving.
Let us pray. Eternal God, how excellent is your name in all the earth. We thank you for the gift of life and the privilege of broadening the opportunities for our common human existence. We praise you for the memory and the impact of Samir Younis on the Jamaican business landscape and his dogged commitment to Jamaica's welfare. We praise you, too, for the tremendous deposit of skill and experience that you have placed within Elaine Commission, allowing her to meaningfully compile aspects of Mr. Younis's stewardship. As we meet like this, hallow our gathering with your presence. And as we read and remember, may we be inspired to faithfully serve your purposes in our world. As you pour blessings upon the Younis family, we pray your continued blessings upon Jamaica. Help us to turn from evil and every corrupting vice. Strengthen us to pursue the virtues of honest industry, justice, and peace. And grant that through our giving and our living, Jamaica may, under God, increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race. We pray for Christ's sake. Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Carlisle. You know, you can be impacted by so many things and not even know the genesis. I mean, how many of us remember Clean as a Whistle? That campaign. And when I read the book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is where Clean as a Whistle came from. We just knew that we were in Jamaica and that there was a campaign, and just we were just all inspired by it. We wanted Jamaica to be as clean as a whistle. But did we know where it came from? No, we just moved with it. And so I want to thank Samir. And when you read this book, you'll find that he contributed in so many ways to the betterment of who we are. And so right now, as I told you, in the book, we meet his loves. One of them is Mrs. Younis, who's here with us. And we discover a love that's traveled over time, space, oceans, geography, and is still beautiful today. And so I'm going to ask you to turn your attention to the screens as we hear from her, to be followed by the Most Honorable P.J. Patterson.
I met my husband in Lebanon, and he is a third cousin of mine, and we did not know each other at all. We didn't even know that we exist. I didn't know he existed. I didn't know he was a cousin of mine living all the way in Jamaica. And so he came to get married, and I was kind of young still, but we met through family members, and he seems to have fallen in love. And so we started dating, and we got married, and we came to Jamaica. And in Jamaica, they had a big party to introduce me to a lot of his friends and his parents who had that party. And I didn't know the English language, by the way. Didn't know much about the English language at all. So I learned it. As you can see, I can speak quite well now. And I was educated mostly in Arabic and French. It took me a good while to get used to Jamaica and the culture. But now, after quite a few years though, no one can talk badly about Jamaica in front of me. May God have mercy on their soul if they do. If they want to criticize Jamaica, they have to be Jamaicans, but no one from abroad. And so I love it. I love Jamaica a lot, and its people. I find them the nicest people, really nice people. And I love how they laugh at themselves and tell jokes about themselves. So from there on, I became a Jamaican more than the Jamaicans, some of the Jamaicans. So then after living here a few years, and my husband got involved with the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, and he was the president of 5 years, and he became the president of the Jamaica Manufacturers Association also for 4 years. And if I may say, he was a very strong leader.
We are here with the Most Honorable former Prime Minister, Honorable P.J. Patterson, who has become a friend of Samir Younis. Main title and the reason why we are here today, to share in the memoirs that you were a part of. And we are so happy to share this moment with you. We have added a little bit to the title, The Lion of King Street. You are more familiar with the reason for the book, written about Samir Younis, A Portrait of Service. And I'm very pleased to show you The Lion of King Street was added by the publisher when he read the book, and because it helped to underscore the genesis of a number of the activities from downtown, and of course spreading over the areas of Kingston and St. Andrew. So it is my pleasure to hand this copy of the book that you wrote the foreword to.
I met Samir for the first time in the early 70s. At that time he was a young businessman, and I had just been appointed Minister of Industry tourism and foreign trade. These were the days of price controls, of licensing, and that meant from time to time, as minister, I would have to meet with groups of businessmen, sometimes collectively, and at other times through the formal organizations to which they belong. Samir Younis was frequently a member of those meetings. From those days, he had the capacity to articulate very clearly points of view,
Yes.
his concerns, and to represent not only his interests, but that of the group to which he belonged.
Yeah.
It was only a matter of time that he would ascend to positions of leadership within the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah.
eventually becoming chairman of the JCC. I may jump here to say that over the years, he moved from being one who indulged mainly in trading to one who became more immersed in production.
Yes, yes.
And as a result of that, he has a very unique place in the annals of Jamaica because he is the first and indeed the only person who served as president of the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce and subsequently president of the Jamaica Manufacturers Association. He was always a man of strong opinions and he liked a good argument.
Indeed.
And when it came to considerations of government policy, he would not only question them, but he would articulate concerns and suggest alterations that were necessary for the growth of businesses in Jamaica. He was tenacious. He was one prepared to fight
He was a fighter
for what he
Yes,
believed in. There is another aspect of Samir which I think I ought to mention. He was one of those persons who did not come from Africa in terms of ethnic origin.
Yes.
He came more from what we in Jamaica regard as Lebanon and Syria.
Rather, it was his parents.
It was his parents,
Okay.
certainly, but he was of that
Lineage.
ethnic origin.
Yeah, yeah.
I mention this because he was first and foremost Jamaican
Indeed.
to the very core of
Indeed.
his being.
Yeah.
And that manifested itself, conducted his own business, but was a guiding star throughout his life, so that he could frequent any part of Jamaica, blend in, and he was very, very conscious of those who were less fortunate than himself.
Yeah.
And his, not just charity, not just his benevolence, but his preparedness to engage in activities that extended beyond giving of material support
Indeed.
into making those people more rounded citizens that could contribute to Jamaica, the nation to which he belonged, was a driving feature
It was indeed.
of Samir Younis. I was also fortunate to be among his group of chosen friends.
Yes.
We would exchange greetings not only on the festive occasions. From time to time, we would meet socially. And one of the things we looked forward to, those nights at his house after bird shooting, and he would have a chosen group of friends in to savor
Yeah.
the range of delights that were available.
Yeah.
He was a man of fastidious taste,
Yes.
whether it came to music, whether it came to
Remember his
wine,
favorite song?
whether it came to food,
Yeah.
and of course he prided himself in being sartorially elegant.
Are you indicating that he wasn't?
he he he
likes
was
to look good.
always fashionably
Yeah.
dressed and didn't hesitate to strut around any gathering
Yes.
to show how well tailored he was. He's made an outstanding contribution to the development of Jamaica.
Indeed.
And it is fitting that you have taken the time and devoted your flair for writing in this book, the best memories of the Lion of King Street. And I hope it will serve not only to acquaint the younger generation of his contribution to so many aspects of our national life, but even more so to inspire those who seek to follow in his footsteps.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one of the objectives of the formal launch, as requested by his son Jason and wife, is that the proceeds from the book will go towards the JCC Samir Younis Foundation, which is aimed at furthering his work with the disadvantaged. You may know that the proceeds of the Grand Charity Ball that they used to hold every year used to go to that, and that helped to fund many of his outreach programs. We feel very happy that this will be able to continue.
Those charity balls were significant.
Oh yes, remember the opening song?
Markers.
You remember the opening song? My Way.
Yes, and he certainly
did it. Yes. Very pleased that we are able to present you with a copy. You wrote the foreword, and I'm sure, as you have just stated, that there are many memories that go with Samir that you shared in that opening piece to the book. We are pleased again.
A businessman, supreme patriot, nationalist, and a model for Jamaicans to follow.
I agree. That's a good note on which to say once more how grateful I am personally, and the Younis family as well, that you chose to endorse the writing of this book by writing the foreword to it, and for sharing this time with us when we remember the man that was Samir.
As I said in the opening of my foreword, I had little choice because Samir was not one to make requests. He issued commands, and when I got the instruction that I was required to write the foreword, it was my pleasure to respond to that duty.
He was proud of it as well, and grateful, and thank you.
What a great interview, Elaine. And I was just listening and I said, PJ Patterson and I never discussed it, and we shared the same feelings when I read it, that he was a supreme patriot, a nationalist, fastidious taste. I took my notes, and sartorially elegant. So I was sharing with someone here, I won't say who unless she tells me who, that prior to Fabrics to Younis, we used to go and buy material and cloth. And then Fabrics to Younis introduced fabric into the lexicon of many of us. And so when we were going to specific events, you knew Fabrics to Younis is where you went to get that type of material, because that's where you were going. Unique place in our history, certainly holds that. And as he said, not only his interests, his personal interests, but the group to which he belonged. You'll read it in the book. Mrs. Younis didn't tell you that Samir was introduced to other young women, but he just was not having it. He was gonna come home, and then he met her, and he decided, I'm not going home without her. Yes, and so she had to come, non-English speaking and all, to Jamaica. And here she is today. Thank you, Mrs. Younis, for those memories that you shared, and of course the memories in the book. And so now we are going to have Mr. Jason Younis, JP, share with us greetings from the Younis family and the JCC Samir Younis Foundation, of course, to which the proceeds from the sales will go. So please put your hands together for Mr. Jason Younis.
Thank you very much. Good evening, members of Parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Younis family and the JCC Samir Younis Foundation, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome you to the official launch of my father's memoirs entitled The Lion of King Street, Samir Younis, A Portrait of Service. This has been many, many years in the making. And the COVID did not help with the timeline. It is bittersweet that this day has finally arrived. It would have been better if Dad was around to see it. But today fills us with immense pride, knowing that people will be reminded what he did for Jamaica, the Jamaican people, and the private sector, especially in the areas of retail and manufacturing. We're happy to know that there will be new generations of people who learn of his sacrifices and his work with at-risk youths. But none of this would have been possible without the author and our friend, Elaine Commission. Thank you, Elaine, for all your hard work and dedication to seeing this book become a reality. It was great to see the special relationship you had with Dad, both professionally and personally. Again, Elaine, we can't share our appreciation for you enough. We also appreciate your ability to make connections and share them. Bringing on Michael Grant of Great House Publishing was a perfect match. Michael, thank you for your calm professional guidance in the publishing process. It didn't take long to get you indoctrinated to our level of craziness. Shelly Ann Thompson, thank you for your PR services and your help with the setup and organizing today. A huge thank you to our sponsors and supporters, the S Hotel, Jerry and Nephew Limited, GMEA, Sandals, Grace, and Chassis Ramsden Limited. I would also like to thank those of you here today showing support, and those of you watching on YouTube. Last but definitely not least, I would like to thank my mother for doing the heavy lifting raising us all, but especially for her love, dedication, and support for our father through 54 years of marriage. All that Dad did would not have been possible if he didn't have you by his side. I know this process has been difficult for you at times. We appreciate your strength and your help seeing this through. But before I go, as you all have heard, the proceeds from the sale of the books will go to the JCC Samir Younis Foundation, and it will fund the projects of the foundation, including the Inner City Youth Leadership Training Program. A program where police officers and at-risk youths are put in a classroom for 6 weeks, and they're taught conflict resolution, anger management, BPO training, employability skills, just to name a few. The motto there is, Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he'll eat for a lifetime. So today is the first day of Christmas, and it's a season of giving. So when you purchase a book, we won't hold it against you if you want to round up to the nearest 10,000 or even more. But even better, if you're going to write a check or use a credit card, be a hero and add a zero. So the foundation can get the full support, your full financial support. We need more heroes. I'm calling Jaipur tomorrow, and I'm having that slogan patented. Be a hero, add a zero. So please enjoy the rest of the evening, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Jason. Be a hero, add a zero. Yes. And one of the interesting things in this book is just the relationship that Samir had with each of his children. And the relationship was unique for every single child. And when they share with you their relationship with him and what he taught them and how that's impacted their lives, you will see that he poured into every child what he felt was unique about them. And so at this time, I'm just going to ask the Younis family to stand for us as we recognize you, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, because it's a lot of time and hours spent by Samir in building Jamaica, and that means family time. And we want to thank you. We want to thank you for allowing us that time for him. Thank you so much. You heard the Most Honorable P.J. Patterson say it was unique for someone to be president of the JMA, now JMEA, as well as president of the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce. And we have both organizations here with us this evening. And so, from the JMEA, Mr. Sidney Thwaites, the current president, will bring some greetings, and he will be followed by Mr. Milton Samuda, former president of the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce.
Evening. I'd like to say a thank you to the family, the Younis family, the extended family, and to Elaine for having me. When Elaine called me and she told me about the project, it was a no-brainer for us to get involved. And then she asked me to give some comments. I didn't have the pleasure of knowing Mr. Younis, so I said, Elaine, you sure? And she said yes. So I thought about it and thought about what could I add to this? You've had the prime ministers and you've had those who knew him well and family. And I thought about it and thought, where do I start? So I read the book. And and I read it all in one afternoon in about 3 hours, and I couldn't really put it down, and it struck a lot of things in me that I wasn't expecting. So I thought the best I could do for the group is to kind of tell you what I walked away from that journey with, from the perspective of a president of the JMEA and a member of the private sector. I think the main thing was the breadth of service, the fullness of service. And what I mean by that is it's one thing for members of the private sector to get up and advocate for things that are meaningful to our businesses. That's what we do. It is a totally different thing to not lose the sight that the communities make up our businesses. And the work he did with the communities in understanding that they go hand in hand with the private sector was one of the things that resonated with me as I read. The focus on the cleanliness and the road conditions and the road safety and crime and education. These are not just things that impact our businesses, but they impact the psyche of Jamaican people. To me, that was one of the most profound takeaways of the book and the things that had me, I don't know, a bit in awe of the entire, the totality of his legacy of service. Another takeaway was the sense of appreciation. Appreciation for the sacrifice, the contributions that others made in times that, relative to where we are today, were more dire, were more difficult, more challenging, no less important, but certainly more challenging. It gave me a sense that the shoes are very big to fill. It was a bit daunting thinking about this massive legacy and how one may look down the road and hope that their legacy is left. I feel that way with others in the room as well. It was also a reminder that all the things that we try to build and create and all the prosperity that we hope to achieve in Jamaica has to be for all Jamaicans. It doesn't work. We can't grow our private sector without growing our people. The two go hand in hand, and this was a stark reminder that that didn't come without work and effort and understanding and empathy and walking amongst the people, and not just talking at the people, but talking to the people and understanding the people. The journey through the line of King Street has been impactful to me personally. And you don't say that a lot about, not a lot of books have that personal impact. And for that, I thank Elaine, I thank the family. I thank you for having me. I think it's so important to put down these things so that generations that come after, and those of us who don't always have all of the nuance of what has come ahead of us, and a real appreciation for the shoulders that we walk on. I think it's a very important work, but more than that, I think it was a very important life. Just reading the book has had an impact on me. I can't imagine those who knew him well and call him a member of the family. So I'm humbled and honored to have been here. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the movement that I hope we can make with this work. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. I think that one of the advantages I have today is that I have not read the book. And therefore, I am unaffected by either Samir's or Elaine's interpretation of his life. When Samir passed, I penned a few words about him. And I spoke about the complexity of the man. Someone who was larger than life to Jamaica, had an ego that was well known, but at times could be riddled with self-doubt and in need of support and reaffirmation. Somebody, if I remember correctly, I said, who needed no assistance in blowing his own trumpet, but at the same time could be humble, self-effacing, and driven to advance others. That complexity, that humanity, informed everything that he did. And therefore, in celebrating his legacy, I thought I would point out just a couple of things to you. One is that it is very important, and I really congratulate Elaine and Michael on this, for us to tell our own stories. We are a people that are often written about. And the funny thing about history is that even if you live it, it is interpretive. 10 people can experience the exact same event. And if you read 10 reports, you could see it from 10 different perspectives. So heaven help you if one of them is a historian and they are by nature schizophrenic. That one could give you 5, so you might have 15. So it's very important that our stories be told in our voice by people who have heard it and who have experienced it by our side. So from that point of view alone, the book is important. But the book speaks about a life. And the book can't be important simply because it tells the story of a life. What type of life did it speak to? What type of life is it highlighting? And it is true that Samir could be extremely self-centered, but he could also be absolutely selfless. And he was selfless about his family, fiercely so. His love for them was palpable, and he spoke about it at all times. Samir had about 10 different ways of telling the story about Layla. Yes. The story he told me was that having gone to Lebanon, as Layla said, to find a wife, he thought he had come up empty-handed. And I think it was a cousin who is supposed to have said to him, "Come with me, I'm going to pick up something somewhere." And Samir said, "No." He said, "Come, man." I said, "No." He said, "Come, man." And he went, and one of the first persons to the door was Layla. And he said to me, "Milton," I said, "That's my wife." So Layla says that he fell in love over a period of time. Anybody who read the first Godfather knows about the thunderbolt. Samir was struck by a thunderbolt. And he said it was the best decision he had ever made in his life. I had on occasion seen Layla give support. And it is very true that Samir could not have accomplished what he did, either as a family man, as a businessman, or as a national leader, without her. God bless you, Layla. But Samir was also, as PM Patterson said, a nationalist. He did not see things only from the point of view of his own self-interest. He saw that self-interest in context. He knew that it was very important to the business sector that so-called ordinary people have a chance to advance. that so-called ordinary people should have a chance to escape circumstances. And that is one of the reasons why the intent of what is now the Samir Younis Foundation was to help those in what he called the inner city. It brought joy to Samir to have a classroom that was filled with people from the inner city, male and female, and from the constabulary. And in the beginning, they did not know the origins of each other. So those from communities that may not have seen the JCF in the best light were sitting beside members of the JCF. And they worked together, they studied together, they graduated from the program together. I had the honor of speaking at a couple of the graduations. That's the type of work Samir was interested in. Not the type of work where too many of our business leaders put on a branded T-shirt on Monday, insist on a photo opportunity, and give $10,000 to a primary school library. But we'll show up in Darkers on Saturday at a stage show where women will be denigrated, criminality celebrated, and all the vices that we seek to get rid of promoted. And they'll give $500,000 to that effort. Far better a spend for you to buy this book and make sure that it goes to what Samir was interested in, rather than what too much of current corporate Jamaica celebrates. I leave those thoughts with you. I leave those thoughts with you, and I ask you to honor Samir's memory by working towards his legacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Milton. May not have read the book, but would have followed Samir's instructions to a T, because I'm sure he would have agreed with absolutely everything that you've said. A lion, they say, symbolizes majesty, strength, courage, justice. And when we hear Sidney Thwaites talk about empathy and Milton talking about the confident human and the complexities of Samir, it's so amazing that all of that is captured in this book. And so, are we not tired of conflicts in Jamaica? We're reading so much about that happening in schools and in communities, and this is what the JCC Samir Younis Foundation addresses. And so if we've read the headlines and we've been on Instagram and we've been pained to see what's been happening, be a hero, add a zero. This book is not just for you, it's for school libraries, it's for communities, it's for young businessmen and women, so they understand that there is a social responsibility to what you do. So you can buy a book, donate a book to someone. It's very important. And it's in all bookstores right now. Someone asked online, where is it available? On all bookstores, but lucky for you, we have them right here today. And so we're going to take a very short break because I know you want to get yourselves refreshed. I see the glasses are a little bit empty. We're going to top them up for you. For those of you who are able to now, you can purchase. And then we're going to resume with readings from the book, and then we're going to hear from our publisher, Great House Books, Michael A. Grant. So we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back. Thank you. but we want to continue with this part of our launch. So I'm inviting everyone back to your seats. And for the folks who are online, please rejoin us online. Thank you so much. So you'll recall Milton Samuda raising the importance of telling our own stories. And so when you came in, you would have seen also at the table Mr. Tourism, Take Back 282, a collection of stories of which the Lion of King Street is an important part. Everyone has a story, and not just individuals, but companies as well. And since Jamaican culture is so full of untold stories in entertainment, sport, public life, business, academia, and so much more, you should get it written, edited, published. If you are not taking away anything, please, we have to tell and preserve our own stories. A good book that's well conceived, thoughtfully written, and beautifully designed can last forever. What's your story? We want to share your story. So you can email kingstoncommunications@yahoo.com, or you can call 876-490-7111, 876-616-8822. Send the email. Send it. Let them tell you it's not work. Because I've seen people, and I've said, why don't you tell this story? And I said, Lux, nobody don't want to hear that story. They do. They do. So reach out. Tell them your story. And as I said, it doesn't have to be an individual. It can be an organization. It can be a group. Something. Let's share and preserve our stories. Now it's time to hear a little bit more about the Lion of King Street. And so it's my pleasure to introduce to you once again Jason Younis, JP, who will deliver our first book reading. And then when Jason is through, I will introduce you to our author and tell you a little bit about her before she delivers her book reading as well. So Jason is allowing Elaine. Let me tell you a little bit about our author. You've heard her name so much this evening. Elaine Commission, OD, JP, MBA, BSc. She also has a diploma in education, by the way, from the UWI. She's founder, chairman, and executive director of Cara Limited, Corporate Affairs Research and Advertising, a powerhouse from 1981 to 2014. She's a recipient, as I've said, of the National Order of Distinction for distinguished service in the practice of public relations. Trained on a British Council scholarship in London, England, at the British Council and the BBC in audiovisual and media production. She has, within the context of her professional marketing communication services, mounted international stage shows, believe it or not, involving artists such as the Platters. Yes. She mounted Jamaica's first ever international buyers fashion show, and she's created and managed some of Jamaica's most outstanding events as an event planner and manager. Elaine, as a consultant for corporate training, has worked as a public relations consultant, award-winning on campaigns such as the Cleaners a Whistle campaign, the People Against Road Accidents campaign, Campaign Help, all for the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, the Helping Hands campaign for the Ministry of Health and the University Hospital of the West Indies, and the Save the Dollar campaign for the National Commercial Bank. We all know those campaigns. She's helped to establish Teachers' Day for the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce. That's now a national institution. The Senior Citizens Line in Jamaica, first called the Care Line. She's done START, the account for youngsters at NCB. I could go on and on and on. A committed Christian, a strategic planner, so many things. She is a powerhouse. And who else could have brought this book into fruition? Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Elaine Commission.
Madam Master of Ceremonies, thank you. Permit me to express my personal appreciation to all the distinguished guests who have made time to share this evening. My minister, Reverend Asta Carlyle, who had to run out a while ago, who expressed our sincere thanks to God for making this evening a reality. Mrs. Lila Younis and Jason Younis, who are my fact checkers and always there for me, and the rest of the Younis family, members of Parliament, presidents and members of the JCC and JMEA, members of the media and friends and family are all distinguished and appreciated for sharing this very special moment with us. Mine is a pleasure as the author of this book to share a few excerpts that will provide just a taste of what this book, aptly titled The Lion of King Street, Samir Younis, A Portrait of Service, is all about. It is my hope that this book will come to be regarded as one that appropriately presents a view of the true Samir, a man who was described in the foreword that you saw and heard a bit about, written by former Prime Minister, Most Honorable P.J. Patterson. He described him as a man of compassion, a fierce social advocate and patriot who transformed lives. And that last part is so important because he transformed lives individually and transformed lives in helping us who were part of his team to see things differently. But before I read a short excerpt from the book, and it will be short, I must share with you some of my own words of dedication penned at the start of the book. It reads, "This book is dedicated to the people of Jamaica, in particularly the disenfranchised, whose voice within the society has become muffled by poverty or social position, and so whose needs are not heard with the deserved impact by the community of which they are a part. It is particularly dedicated to our Jamaican youth, within which lies such promise, and who have shown themselves to be responsive to the understanding voice and helping hand, such as that provided by Samir Younis, and who was willing to point the way. It is also dedicated to the Younis family, who stoically stood behind a man who at times became so caught up with his enthusiastic commitment to the visionary purpose of service, sometimes at a sacrificial cost to their own needs. And he was concerned about that. And that was one of the things I had to go back and add at the end of the book, the chapter 3, because he was concerned. Yet they were willing to support, even embrace, the efforts being made to give service where it was needed most. For the reading, as an excerpt from this book, I turn to chapter 4, which provides a brief look at how it all began. I'm reading from page 32. Some of you have copies of the book. And I'm starting at the paragraph 3, I think. Okay. To page 33. This section looks at parts of one of the first campaign that Samir dealt with, which was the Clean as a Whistle campaign. And I like to give credit where credit is due. The name of the campaign, the Clean as a Whistle campaign, was given to me by a former owner of the public relations firm where I worked at the time. He came to me, he was Desmond Henry. He was leaving Jamaica, and he had already spoken to Samir Younis, and Samir had expressed the desire to make Kingston clean. And he said, you know, I think a name like Clean as a Whistle would be good. He even gave me the slogan, "The city's beauty is our duty." And then he introduced me to Samir. The purpose of that first campaign was to make Kingston clean. And it brought a lot of laughs when Samir first introduced that thought, because you would have had to see Kingston streets to realize that, you know, it was a really daunting task. The wanton and fulsome accumulation of garbage on the streets, leading to clogged drains, sidewalk cooking and vending, even in bus stalls. That is where people chose to cook their meals. Dead animals on the streets, unbushed lots, inadequate public toilet facilities, and most surprisingly, accompanying what were described as offensive personal habits. That's my nice way of putting it. Such as urination in public spaces, mainly caused by men, and the habit of spitting into the streets from the cars. It was really, really bad. To Samir Younis, while these factors were disturbing, perhaps the most important, requiring immediate attention, was the public accumulation of garbage, which created a breeding ground for insects, including flies, which in turn acted as the carriers of various diseases. So we saw beyond the obvious. Apart from this, he felt that the public accumulation of garbage was the greatest social eyesore and the most prominent evidence of how people paid scant regard to their surroundings. Samir Younis believed in the power and reach of the mass media, and they loved him because he spoke his mind. So there's always news. He also believed that public education could be utilized as a tool to help bring back civic pride to Jamaicans. Time proved him right. I'm going to skip a bit to some of the questions that he invited the public to ask as the campaign was launched. He said regarding the sidewalk cooking that was all over the place. He asked yourself these questions, he urged committee members. How viable is running water in those stalls? Are there proper available toilet facilities? What arrangements have been made for sanitary food storage and refrigeration? How many food vendors have permits as required by law? Similarly, Samir Younis described the overpowering incidents of dead animals on the streets, and it's like every corner. He appealed to the public to exert greater care and control over the movements of their animals. Live animals which roam the streets are a danger to motorists, he cautioned. They are often killed, presenting a definite health hazard when left for days uncollected, thereby providing a breeding ground for germs and a noxious, disturbing odor for passers-by. We must try to prevent these accidents as well as to encourage speedy collection and disposal of the carcasses of those killed, he added. He even took to task the persons guilty of the indiscriminate spitting on the streets, some through their car windows. He wasn't afraid of anybody. This he described as a disgusting habit, which in the extreme could have serious health consequences, including the spread of a variety of airborne diseases. We must develop clean habits if we are to be healthy. So let us all determine to do our part by supporting the Clean as a Whistle campaign for a cleaner, healthier city, was his constant appeal. A man of action, Samir decided to take his concerns to the government. They saw him frequently, asking for and receiving audience with the then Minister of Local Government, the Honorable Pernell Charles. Responding to the infectious enthusiasm of Samir Younis, Mr. Charles came to identify with and was a supportive ally of the campaign's objective to address the issue of the coconut vending stalls, and we started at Harborview Roundabout. And to complete this section, acting out of an acute awareness of the power and potential impact of public education, the committee sought the necessary expertise of Cara Limited, a local public relations agency, to devise what came to be described as a powerful Madison Avenue-style public educational campaign that took Jamaica by storm. It was named the Clean as a Whistle campaign, with the slogan, "The city's beauty is our duty." And those are the headlines it received. And I'll just pause there. Everything began with this. The Helping Hands campaign, because of the people that were on the streets, and we had the slogan, "Show you care, reach out and share." And the people against road accidents, because you know how we are on the road. And out of that, we got the proposal for seatbelt law that you enjoy now. That is where it began, right? And so on. And Jason spoke about the last campaign, which was motivated by violence in the inner cities. And he had both police and the so-called gangsters together, learning together. So he was a man of vision, and it is my pleasure to have shared him with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for Elaine Commission. It's important when we stand on shoulders that we know on whose shoulders we stand. And I think sharing that opened a lot of our eyes here this afternoon, and it's important that we share that information with others. So companies, organizations, we sell the book by the case, by the way. You don't just have to buy one book or come out of here with 10 in your hand. We can make arrangements that your company libraries. And it's Christmas. Why not gift someone The Lion of King Street? Such a great book to read, taking them into the new year, right? Thank you once again, Mrs. Commission. And now we're going to hear from our publisher, Michael Grant, from Great House Books, and also creative director for Kingston Communications, a full-service agency. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He's an honors graduate of Yale University, and also and also holds, Mrs. Younis is a real Jamaican, you know. She said, what? and also holds a master's degree in communications from the Annenberg School at the University of Pennsylvania. He was supervising art director and creative director at 2 ad agencies in Princeton, New Jersey. Mr. Grant has also been an editorial designer at the Wall Street Journal, has won numerous design and advertising awards, including the New York Festival's World Medal for Design and the Addy Award for Advertising. As a sportsman, he's represented Jamaica at table tennis and played football in Jamaican leagues as well as in college. In addition to his work in communications, he's also an adjunct senior lecturer at the University of the West Indies. Mr. Grant wrote and produced the documentary Finding Foster, about the search for the life story of G.C. Foster, Jamaica's first superstar sprinter. And you know the college is named after G.C. Foster. And as the author or co-author of 8 books, including 3 collaborations on Jamaican athletics with the late Hubert Lawrence. His upcoming book is the story of the stolen Jamaican police boat, titled Take Back the 282. Sounds like a movie, right? Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Grant.
Thank you, Delia. That almost didn't sound like me, but it's definitely me. Jason did a very good job of thanks, particularly in terms of those who we have in attendance, as well as our sponsors. But I'll say a little more about them in a little while. Samir Younis had a roar on him, and I think that led to my decision to title the book, The Lion of King Street. There were questions about what did he have to do with King Street? Or why you want to call him a lion? But it made sense because of everything you've heard today about the power of his ideas, his force of will, but also his actual voice. For those who've never heard it, I have the recipe. Just take Jason Younis' voice, add a few decibels in a slightly lower register, and there it is. The work done by Mrs. Comijang is a labor of love, but also one of urgency. Urgency not because of the way she researched and captured Mr. Younis' thoughts in the last years of his life, but also knowing her work and passions as I do, her feeling that Jamaica's business community should re-engage in the work of mentoring, training, and society building that they could be doing for their country and its disadvantaged, using the example that has been set by Mr. Younis. On that note, I'd like to thank the S Hotel and their staff for providing this wonderful setting tonight, Sandals International, Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, Chas Ramson Limited, J. Ray and Nephew, and Grace Kennedy Limited. Their contributions have further enhanced the Younis legacy and will help with ongoing support for Jamaica's disadvantaged. We are sincerely grateful to them. Thanks to Shelley Ann Thompson, her name came up before. She helped to set up the event. And everyone who has come out to support tonight's affair. I'm also thanking everyone in advance for their purchase of the book. And I urge you to also make a contribution at this time, for example, a 10,000 contribution for every copy of the book. Actually, some people already did that. I saw it. So it's not so far-fetched. In addition, the Lion of King Street will make a great corporate gift, so please take one of my cards so that you can place an order when you get back to work. We can box each copy for you if you want to give them as a gift. Again, thank everyone who's here tonight. I wanted to use this little segment for a Q&A in case anyone has any questions about the way the book was put together, almost anything. Somebody must have a question. How'd you get it to look so beautiful? Question, one question.
There was a question on the choice of photograph that was used for the book cover as opposed to the one in the center.
Elaine wants to take that. I'll let her feel that question.
I think we should look at the picture, and everybody is struck by the eyes, right?
Yes.
That picture was taken of a young Samir. And if you notice, he and Jason have one thing in common. Although he was losing. And I said, we have to take a picture now. And he said, why? I said, because it's going to get ugly. Because he was just losing his hair. He was never ugly. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that is it. That is the picture at the front. And I thought, seriously, that it captured him in a very special way.
Thanks for that. Anybody with another one? I'm actually guilty of designing the cover as well as publishing the book, so I know a lot about how it came together. And the secret is that that picture of him is a little young for encompassing all of what he did. So the one that we chose is kind of somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
And we use the benefit, some would say the curse, of AI, artificial intelligence, to get a low resolution image to look really sharp and really beautiful. So what you see on the cover is aided by AI. So we don't have to fear it that much. Any other? No hands? Yes. Microphone.
Two.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Look for a switch.
My name
Is it on?
is Dawn Marks.
Yeah.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. My name is Dawn Marks. I am a church member friend of Miss Comisong's, and she invited me here. I'm in publishing as well. I'm an editor at Carlong Publishers, and I know that we focus on education, and most of the books that we publish have to be sent out of the country to be printed. And I'm wondering if that was the same process for you.
Yeah. What has happened is that over the years, with the increases in costs of electricity, it's very difficult to print projects of the size of a major book using things like embossing and ultraviolet coatings and all that. So a lot of those finishing techniques are used on this book, and it would have cost an absolute fortune to do it here. And it's mostly because of the cost of electricity. So this book was printed overseas. Not everyone does that, but some of my titles are printed overseas, including this one. Somebody else had one.
My question is a little bit different. Had it not been for my mentor, Elaine Comisiong, I would not have known of Samir and the great work he did. My heart is in the right place in doing service, but not as organized in making the kind of impact that he did. How can we be more strategic in getting young people involved in a process like this?
I think some of those, you can call them problems, have already been resolved by the work of the JCC Samir Younis Foundation. And it would be good for people like yourself to plug in to what they're doing, whether it's volunteer, teach, mentor, whatever it might be, to be able to do that. There was a time when that was far more common for young people to get involved in things like that. And it's part of what I was saying before, that we should return to that. Jason's here. Strike up a conversation after this. See where you can help. All right? So at this point, I think I've worn out my welcome, and we should get back to doing some book business. And book signing by Mrs. Comijang, and Jason, and whoever else you want to sign. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. And I know sometimes we have questions, but we don't want to ask them out in the open. This is going to be your opportunity now to see him one-on-one, and you can exchange ideas, numbers, and see how we can help to advance the telling of our stories, and particularly a portrait of service, Samir Younis. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. We're not quite yet done. Elaine and Jason are going to move to the table, and they're going to be doing some book signings for us. I know you purchased your books, and it's important that you get them signed before you go, and you can continue to purchase and have that done while we continue to fellowship and share our stories about Samir Younis. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. I'm Delia Harris. Anytime.